I'm gonna do a reaction video with my face, like those remixing videos, basically, because I want to react to a part of the video. But I wanted to talk to you about specifically one thing in the video mentioned. I have already addressed most of what you said here, specifically on reproductive organs. I mean, I guess I could show this part of my channel just so you guys can see. Oops. That's not what I was trying to do. As you can see in this video where I have addressing true hermaphroditism, fertility in humans, right here is specifically two stories of which I am talking about specifically people who are two medical studies that have shown that people have been pregnant and impregnated people as well in two different situations. One, a person fathered children but ovulated. That was one situation, but he specifically, I guess, may have not preferred men and did not have a relationship with a man to become pregnant. But then there were other situations where people have become pregnant and also fathered children. There are people who have true hermaphroditism. Also, I wanted to say on fertility, just so we could talk about that just a bit. I do believe that, specifically, I do believe that people don't need to focus on fertility when it comes to intersex people, like which way they can reproduce, because if we were really doing that and saying, oh, you can't reproduce in both regards as a male and a female, therefore you are not intersex, then we would say that women are not women when they cannot get pregnant. Men are not men when they cannot get pregnant. I mean, not when they cannot get someone pregnant. You get what I'm saying. Men are not, men if they cannot get people pregnant, if they're infertile, basically. We do not say that people of the male or female sex are not male or female because they cannot impregnate or they cannot become pregnant. We just consider them infertile. You cannot say the same thing for intersex people and try and impose that idea that you must be fertile in both regards to be acknowledged as intersex any more than you can say that for a female or a male person. What defines a person as male or female is not whether they have reproductive organs. That's not what defines someone as male or female. There are tons of infertile females. There's tons of infertile males. What defines a male as a male is being genetically a male. Okay, if someone is XY chromosomes, forensic evidence doesn't give a darn if his sperm works or not. They're going to be identified as a man because they have XY chromosomes. In every case, well, most cases, let's just say, because there's always an exception, and I'm not willing to really just make blanket statements. But when someone has XY chromosomes, and only XY chromosomes, whether the SRY gene works or not, most likely they do not have ovaries to become pregnant with their own child. See, you could see in Swyer syndrome, for example, that they can implant someone else's egg into them and become pregnant with someone else's child, but they're not pregnant with their own child still. Genetic male people, from everything I've seen, specifically cannot get pregnant with their own children because they do not have ovaries. Usually they do not have ovaries, at least. So because of that, I'm just pointing that out because I wanted to point out that, you can't use fertility because fertility isn't what distinguishes someone as male or female. There are infertile males, there are infertile females. There are or reproductive organs have nothing to do with this. It has to do with who they actually are. And being a specific sex is tangible, okay? Being a specific sex is an actual thing that is identified, and is always identified in actual male and female people. It's just that some people don't want to identify it because they have a mental illness or because they're just uncomfortable. If you are not male or female, biologically, genetically, then you are just not male or female genetically or biologically. And a lot of people do not want to acknowledge that. So forensic evidence is always going to identify someone who is not XX or XY as just that. You're going to be identified as XXXY if that's your karyotype. You're going to be identified as XXXY, if you have a mosaicism or a chimerism. If you have chimerism, for that matter, you're going to be identified as having two different cell lines, specifically XX and XY chromosomes. So that's how it is. You are what you are. There's no reason to lie about it. There's no reason to hide. I don't think transgender people need to hide in any regard. And from my other video that I posted, just basically adding you so then you can see this is how I view transgender people. I do not view transgender people in a hateful way. I definitely do not do that. I don't think that transgender people are bad people. I don't really have any negative views towards them like that, but I do think that there's a lot of self-hate, and I do think that they should be encouraged to love their natural bodies. Now, it's not that I just think that transgender people are the chosen people, and they deserve to be acknowledging their natural body because it's a good type of sex. And people with bad types of sexes should not be acknowledged. No, I don't. And when I say bad types of sexes, what I'm saying is intersex people. People who are biologically not XX or XY chromosomes. Specifically, that is how people are defined by their sex. I know people don't want to acknowledge that. They want to change the meaning of sex when they talk about intersex people because they want them to fit in a box. But that's just not how it works. Reality is reality. If it's specifically defined for infertile men and infertile women as their karyotype and their chromosomal and genetic sex, it works the same for people who are neither. And it's not like it's a lie either. Forensic evidence always identifies people by their genetic sex. It doesn't care how you feel about it. It doesn't care that you think people who are both must lie. It doesn't change anything. It's still going to come out not XX, not XY. It's going to come out saying that as far as forensic evidence is concerned, that's not a male, that's not a female, it's someone who's both, or someone who has neither types of karyotypes, like someone with Turner syndrome, for that matter. So to me, that's my perspective on that, okay? So I do not think that specifically we should make up reasons why intersex people shouldn't embrace their bodies. I do think that they have the same right as transgender people to embrace their bodies just the way it is. Now I understand if there are medical or health issues that are occurring for them, and they are, for one, maybe, they get cancer, or they have other issues, with their reproductive organs, and they need them removed. Of course, then hormonal replacement would be the answer in those situations, or if they don't reproduce enough of a specific hormone, for that matter. But I do find it really interesting that it always comes back down to conforming rather than reality. Always fitting in rather than actual reality. Okay, we will talk about what you talked about on your video. Specifically, you were talking about cross-sex hormones. You were saying that people with XXY variation, their cross-sex hormones were estrogen. And I will just say this. You cannot have cross-sex hormones. You can't consider hormones cross-sex hormones if your natural hormone is specifically that hormone. If the primary hormone that you secrete is specifically that hormone, then how is that a cross-sex hormone? It isn't. It's that you're saying it's cross-conventional. Honestly, in my opinion. What I mean is that it's not what is expected. It is not what society says the hormone that you should be producing, basically. In many cases with people with XXY variation, many of the time hormonally, naturally, they produce estrogen on the same level as women do, many of the time. Many produce a level at around 200 for their estrogen levels, which is within the range of what many females have their estrogen levels. So their main hormonal secretion is estrogen in many cases. So someone who has a body that specifically produces estrogen and not testosterone, and it's not testosterone that's changed into estrogen, like in androgen insensitivity syndrome, it is specifically that they produce estrogen. They produce estrogen more than they produce testosterone. And I'm just saying, people who specifically have this variation, to me, it's like you saying that estrogen is a cross-sex hormone is not true. Estrogen is not the cross-sex hormone for them because that's their natural sex hormone. When we talk about XXY variation, it's annoying because it's like, it's mainly based on what you think should be rather than what is. Okay, like for example, they'll say that, oh, they were born with a penis and testicles. Therefore, they must develop as all people with penises and testicles. That's not how it works. That's a very immature way to view things, because that just has to do with how their genitals came out looking. But that's not specifically what that person is. Genetics define what you are. You can see this with somebody, for example, who has XX male syndrome, for example. They have similar expression of their sex as someone with XXY chromosomes. But you can still see structurally they do have female characteristics. Their bodies are still much more similar to females in bone structure. People with XXY variation tend to have more of a structural similarity to females, not males. And to me, it's like, if the main hormone that you produce is estrogen 1, you are chromosomally XX chromosomes as well as Y chromosome. You are not XX or XY. Then quite clearly, your body may respond very differently to testosterone than estrogen, which estrogen is your natural your natural hormone, sorry. And you can see this in many different other situations. I mean, personally, to me, I've actually watched many different people with XY variations Specifically, I think it was XXY karyotype, specifically. And in one case, one person was specifically talking about how they had the same reaction to testosterone as, for example, some people who are biologically female have a reaction to testosterone. For example, mentally. Sometimes there is a rage, sometimes there is mental dysfunction because they're not naturally supposed to be producing testosterone. And this goes across the board for people who do not naturally produce testosterone. That's people who have XXY chromosomes or people who are female. Either way, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, these people do not produce testosterone naturally. So it can have a mental dysfunction and effect on their minds and their bodies. I remember another person specifically was talking about how they had soldiered on and taken the testosterone for years, and then they were told by their doctors that they would get specifically physically, they would no longer exist, basically, if they continued to take testosterone. And they had to switch to estrogen. Because estrogen is actually the natural hormone for people who are biologically XXY chromosomes, not testosterone. So testosterone is actually the, I guess, technical cross-sex hormone. Even though I would say there is no cross-sex really when you are both sexes, because how can there be? Because you're both sexes. But my whole point in this was specifically addressing you saying that estrogen was your cross-sex hormone. Well, that's not really true, because if you're XXY karyotype, your natural hormone is not testosterone. You don't produce a lot of testosterone. You produce more estrogen than testosterone, on average, most people. I'm not going to say for you because I don't know you, and I don't know your situation, but I'm just saying in many cases with people with XXY karyotypes or variations of that, they specifically produce estrogen, not testosterone. So you can't really call that a cross-sex hormone because that's literally your natural hormone. And I think, like I said, in the cases of testicular cancer and having to remove your, testicles and so forth, I don't think that we should just induce a whole bunch of testosterone and inject a lot of testosterone in people like that when they naturally do not produce testosterone. Why would we do that? I don't get that. To me, it's like, I feel it's more a situation of trying to make people conform with what you think they should be rather than what they actually are. Let people be who they actually are rather than trying to force them to be something they're not. It will cause a lot of mental problems, obviously, and physical problems. And I don't think we should be forcing anybody to be something they're not. That includes intersex people. That's why I believe in body positivity for everyone, male, female, and intersex. So that is how I view that whole situation. I just wanted to pretty much get you a view of it because I think you don't understand. I'm not specifically like a trans activist. I don't support that ideology. I don't think that sex can change. And I really don't think sex can change. Like, I don't think sex changes with Swyer syndrome, XX male syndrome. I think they're genetically male. Forensic evidence is going to say that they are male. At the scene of a crime, they're seen as male, and in XX male syndrome, they're going to be seen as female. At the scene of a crime, they're going to be identified as female, therefore they are female. Why should I lie just because they have a condition? It doesn't make any sense to me. To me, those are situations of pseudo-hermaphroditism. I wouldn't say XXY variation is pseudohermaphroditism because they are chromosomally neither male nor female. Therefore, forensic evidence is going to show they're not male, as in XY, and they're not female, as in XX. They're both. I know a lot of people like to make them male by injecting a whole bunch of hormones in them, testosterone, which isn't their natural hormone, but that doesn't really change that naturally they're not a biological male on the genetic level, and not really even on the physical level, because they can't even develop into male people, like a full-grown male person. They go through more of a female puberty many of the time than a male puberty. And if you don't believe me, go look it up online. There's plenty of clinical evidence on this. Anyone can look at the people with XY variations and their bodies, and many of the time it's almost indistinguishable from females, only their genitalia is slightly different looking. Everything in their structure looks a lot like females. I'm not saying they're female. Obviously they're not. They're not X chromosomes. I'm just saying that's who they are. I don't want to really lie about it. I don't want to say, hey, let's inject a whole bunch of testosterone in it just to hide the fact that they are not male and they are not female, but they are both. But, so, that's just how I view this at the end of the day. I just don't want to lie. I don't believe that intersex people are less worthy of body positivity. They're worthy just like everybody else. So that's my view on that. I will do a remix video of your video, a little small, portion of it when I get my phone. But yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe, comment down below, and have a great day. Bye, guys.